the sense of community that we get to cultivate through Acro has been incredible. And once you cultivate physical contact with a person or a group of people through the modality of Acro, that opens up doors for friendships and other kinds of friendship type of intimacy, which has been incredibly like soul level nourishing for me and very, very healing.
Hey, you. Thanks for tuning in. Just a quick heads up, this episode is rated PG-13, so expect to hear some mild language or adult concepts. Well, hi, Natasha. I would like to welcome you to Pleasure Central Radio.
Hi, Rebecca. It's great to be here.
We've known each other for a few years, and we've talked about doing an episode like this for a while, and It's finally happening.
Yay!
Part of the reason that I brought this up now is I've been seeing on your Facebook posts you have a lot of Acro Yoga videos and a lot of little pieces and snippets of communication and of connection and that like physical interaction that you get a lot during Acro Yoga. And I've done a little bit of Acro Yoga, and I like sharing how unique and special it can be and how powerful it can be to learn communication. So I wanted to bring you on the show and have you here and see if we could talk a little bit.
Fantastic. I was super excited when you asked me to talk about Acro. It's one of my biggest passions in life, one of my favorite things to talk about.
Now, how did you discover Acro?
Yeah, great question. Flying trapeze was actually I call it my gateway drug into all things circus. I got a Groupon and I went to a flying trapeze class, and then I got another Groupon and I went to a pole dance class, and that opened up my world to everything that's connected to the circus arts. And then Acro entered my life through a studio where I was training at the time, and I've never looked back.
Fantastic. That sounds so much fun. What is it about Acro in particular, out of all of those circus arts that really inspires you?
It's got to be the connection with other humans. It's a collaborative art, and there's very much a physical training component, which I am a big, big fan of. But the fact that I get to do it with another human through, this tactile experience is what is so enriching for me. And there's definitely room for collaboration and creating something together with another individual. And that is it just kind of hits all of my check boxes for everything that I enjoy in life.
That's awesome. I love hearing people talk about partnership things because on one hand, it is a huge challenge for me. I really prefer to do things on my own and to be responsible for things by myself. But learning to connect with other people and create something new that I can't make on my own has been fantastic and hard and fun and a good growth edge.
Yes, it is definitely one of my favorite ways to create. I do other circus arts as well that are individual that I do, on my own, like silks and pole dance and various other things. But Acro definitely has a special kind of draw for me because of the collaborative aspect with another person or multiple people. That's honestly like even better. We do group Acro sometimes, and it's so exciting and so enriching.
So I have a question for you. I know for me, I had a formative Acro experience that made it so enjoyable to work with other people, especially people that I didn't know. And then I have experienced other places where it's like, oh, this is really not that much fun. I don't think I want to hang out here. What has been the difference for you in your formative Acro circusy arts exploration?
Well, my formative experiences were definitely positive also, which is what kept me coming back. I have had Acro experiences where, I was feeling much of the same, like what you're saying. This environment just doesn't feel energetically like it's a good match for me, or it doesn't feel safe or something like that. And I simply just exit. It's not, a judgment. There's no hard feelings. It's no big deal. I just simply exit and go somewhere else. And most of the time, though, the Acro community is incredibly welcoming, supportive. We literally support each other. it's very collaborative, and there's a great sense of communication, of boundaries, and creating a feeling of safety.
So you mentioned that sometimes it's a good environment that matches where you want to be, and sometimes it's not. How can you tell when it's a good match for where you are at the time?
I just feel it energetically. How does anyone ever tell when something is a good match for them? You just, energetically, like your body will open up, you have a smile on your face, and it feels like a match, and it's something you want to keep going with. So yeah, it's not really rocket science. I trust my intuition and I follow that.
Nice. I was hoping for something practical, like, well, when people are using words like these, it means they're not paying attention to each other or something. And here you're just like, no, just pay attention to your gut and your body. And when it feels like it's right, it feels like it's right.
I do pay attention to my gut and my body. Words are also an important part of communication, obviously. So, if I'm in a group of acrobats and people are saying words that I just, again, energetically don't align with, I will just kind of make my exit. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing there too.
So how would you describe someone that does feel like it's a good fit for you? Just so I can get an idea of what it's like.
So what it might look like is it looks like a flow, where movements are easy. I feel safe, like I'm not going to get injured or dropped. There's support, and the transitions flow, the actual like poses that we're trying to do, they just kind of make sense, and they're easy to execute. They're not always easy to do. There's practice involved, obviously, and there's calibration every time you work with another individual. But even the calibration can intuitively feel whether it's going in the right direction or not. So it looks like a flow.
I like that. I'm imagining a group of people doing acro on a lawn somewhere, connecting with the partners and the flyers and bases that feel right for them. And I'm also thinking that must be a really fun thing to stumble on in the park, a group of people playing together.
100%. That is literally what we do when the weather is nice. I literally had an experience like this recently where I was in a new town in Kelowna, Canada. And we were just going for a walk with, my family and, family who lives there in Kelowna. We're walking through the park and I look over and there's a group of acrobats. And I just like, and I go straight for this group of people. I'm like, hi guys, I'm an acrobat too. May I join? So yes, it literally looks like that. And people do always stop and look and enjoy what they're seeing. And that is also part of the draw for me, not going to lie.
Awesome. Yeah, have a little bit of entertainment for people out in their day.
Yeah, I do enjoy performing. That's been part of my, aerial arts and circus journey as well. It does bring me joy because I watch other people enjoying what I'm doing. And when I go to, shows and performances and things like that, and just like completely lit up with joy and excitement for what I'm watching. So it does make me want to be on the other side of that, being the one on stage, putting on a show for people to enjoy.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you phrased it that way. I had the opportunity this week to go and see The Empire Strips Back.
Nice.
Which was such a fun show. The costumes was great. The music was great. Mm-hmm. But the thing that was my favorite was the sport and the acrobaticness of most of the dancers. It was really fun, really empowering. And I know what you mean. It's just fascinating to watch someone who's so happy.
Yes.
Infectious. Everybody picks it up.
Yes. That's it. That's exactly it. Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. I didn't get a chance to go see that show. I was out of town, but I know people in it.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about what you've learned about communication, verbal and nonverbal communication through your acro journey.
Oh, great question. I love this question, and thank you for asking. So one of the kind of most important things that I've learned through acro and communication that is a required part of acro is boundaries.
I can't believe I overlooked that. Okay, tell me everything.
Yeah, it's something I've definitely struggled with in my adult life. In acro, if you don't set boundaries, if you don't communicate your boundaries, there's a chance you'll get injured or have an experience that might inadvertently perhaps cross your boundaries if you don't communicate them. Because you are in close proximity, I mean, somewhat, I suppose, intimate contact with other people. And many times they're strangers. Like literally, I will, like I mentioned, I just, joined that group of acrobats in Kelowna in Canada. They're all strangers to me. So if we don't have clear communication, and if I'm not communicating my boundaries, they might cross my boundaries without even knowing it. So, both people involved in doing acro, or however many people are in the group doing a group acro, are responsible for communicating their boundaries and communicating their, skill level, what they're comfortable with, what, tricks and poses and flows and things like that they are comfortable with doing, what they're not comfortable with doing. And when I first started, my instinct was like, yes, I want to do all the things, even if they feel kind of unsafe or risky for me, even if I have an injury or something like that, I just kind of want to push through it and do all the things. And I have learned pretty quickly that is not helpful really to anyone. And, I have ended up with injuries sometimes, and there are certain people that I just know from experience are not a good match for me to work with. And there are other people that I prefer to work with where we have like a clear understanding of each other's skill level and where we need to compensate and things like that. But all of that doesn't happen without communication. So yes, communicating boundaries is key.
That is really cool. How, I guess it kind of comes up organically a lot, and you have to speak up and say, I'm new, or I don't know what I'm doing.
100%.
But what other kinds of important boundary communications do you need to know for this?
Well, for example, if you have an injury or something like that, that's kind of a, an obvious one where you can say, like right now I am nursing a shoulder injury. So when I start an acro practice, especially with someone that is new to me or that I haven't seen in a while, I will certainly mention that I have a shoulder injury, and I will let you know what does and doesn't feel safe for me, what, my limits are currently physically and things like that. And there's an immediate kind of acceptance of that and respect that is created by communicating that boundary.
Yeah, there's a lot of magic in opening up that communication line.
100%. Yeah. And sometimes people will ask, especially the bases. So in acro, there's a base and a flyer typically. That's kind of the standard format. And often the base will ask the flyer first, do you have any injuries? Are you working with any limitations and things like that? And that comes with practice too. Not every base will do that. Newer bases just haven't had the experience to learn to know to do that. But I will often get asked if I'm working with someone new, what skills are you comfortable with? What type of acro do you prefer to do? Do you have any injuries? Do you have any other kind of concerns? And we sort of just kind of set that up front.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, respect is huge in the acro community. And if you're not respectful, you will get pushed out. It's just kind of, and that happens organically too, because simply people will not want to work with you if you're not a respectful person.
Yeah. I think it's the same in the dance community.
I'm sure it is.
You get a reputation and then people are just like, no, thank you.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. There doesn't need to be judgment. There doesn't need to be hard feelings. It's just a no, thank you. Yeah. And that is a boundary communication right there.
Very clear and useful one.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. So when I was doing and starting to learn acro a bit, what came up for me a lot, especially with the people that I was practicing with, was blame and that kind of thing where, you don't know how to communicate very quickly or very accurately. And so you step back into the natural habits that you learned, which is like, why aren't you where you need to be? Right. And that's not fun and helpful.
Are you talking about blame, like internal blame for yourself, or like actually verbally communicated kind of blame?
Like verbally communicated kind of blame.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you had that experience, Rebecca.
It was very eye-opening about the future of that relationship. So yes, thank you.
Gotcha. That is unfortunate. I hope that was sort of unique to that individual. That has not really been my experience. Literally, I've been practicing acro for about 10 years, and I can think of maybe like 2 people that I've ever like crossed paths with who had that kind of like blamey energy. And I stopped working with them.
Yeah.
And in all the rest of my acro experience, I have not encountered those kinds of people. So it's unfortunate, and I can see how that can happen sometimes. The vast majority of my experiences have been, okay, so let's say, for example, like a certain skill or a trick didn't work. Let's brainstorm together what didn't work. What can I do differently or better? I prefer differently, not better, because we're all improving and constantly evolving. It's like, what can I do differently to create this thing that we want to create? That's more of my experience, and it's almost entirely my experience lately with acro.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me, especially what you were saying about people that aren't very clear in their communication. They do get pushed out. And that's what I found, that even in these classes that I was going to, the few people that were not very thoughtful and elegant in the way they communicated, they didn't last very long. And they got their own little corner over there where they were frustrating each other. And everyone else was like, no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is why the vast majority of the acro community is actually very welcoming, warm, accepting, and supportive.
I feel like that on one hand, I wanted acro to be a place where people could learn, where those partners especially could learn a new way of communication. But I found that was counterproductive because they weren't ready for it. And they had so many patterns of, this isn't right, but it's because of you, that would just come out. And it was impossible to work with. So what kind of, basic communications do you think is important for people to have if they really want to get into this and develop some new creative art with somebody else?
I would say basic communication skills would be, number one, clarity, not being like vague or not very clear. And also ownership, for sure. It's kind of like what you're saying. Instead of blaming and projecting what's not going well onto other people that you're working with, there has to be a sense of ownership and understanding that this is a collaborative creation, that nothing in a partnership can ever be all someone else's fault. It is always co-created. So if there's lack of that understanding of the fact that is a co-creation, and I would imagine those are the people that kind of carry themselves through the rest of their lives like that, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you don't embody like a sense of ownership and responsibility for your own actions and words in the rest of your life, it will translate to your acro experience, and then it will come out as that kind of like projecting and blaming, kind of rhetoric that you're saying that, does happen sometimes. So for communication, I would say, I guess kind of like with everything, do your own work on yourself and then bring your best self to acro. And you're going to have a fantastic time. Guaranteed.
It's funny how often that's the answer, right?
How you do one thing is how you do everything, and work on yourself first. Yeah, exactly.
How you show up is what makes the difference.
Yeah, 100%.
So Natasha, I'm a big fan of community and having solid community around us to help us support and grow. What kind of difference has Acro made in your life and in your communities?
Definitely, Acro has helped me to integrate into a community where I had no idea how diverse it would be and how accepting it would be of all kinds of people. There's literally people of all shapes, sizes, abilities, colors, like you name it. The diversity is kind of endless. And the sense of community that we get to cultivate through Acro has been incredible. There's by kind of necessity of like the nature of this art, there's physical contact that is involved. And once you cultivate physical contact with a person or group of people through the modality of Acro, that opens up doors for friendships and other kinds of intimacy. And I'm not talking about sexuality. That does happen in the community, of course, too, that people become partners and things like that. What I'm talking about is friendship type of intimacy, which has been incredibly like soul level nourishing for me and very, very healing. I'm definitely a touch oriented person. Like touch is my number one love language. One of the reasons you and I get each other.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I love having physical contact with people, but it doesn't always feel safe. Through Acro, we have, various like events and kind of festivals and training camps and things like that, where you train with people all day. And then at the end of the day, we would do like cuddle puddles or, like just sit in a pile of people and talk about the day or watch a movie or something like that, or do like a massage train or like group kind of Acro experiences. And having that initial contact and those boundaries established and a sense of safety created opens up doors for that. Mm-hmm. And that kind of like sense of building a community where physical touch is not feared. There's nothing taboo about it. We're all open and feel completely safe and, kind of embraced in this giant cuddle puddle. I've been in cuddle puddles that were probably like 100 people.
Wow.
Yeah. It's an incredibly connecting experience. It like reminds you that we are all kind of one. And like that sense of like inclusion is just priceless. And I have created some wonderful, incredible friendships through this community that, have kind of cultivated other opportunities for me too. It's like building a network where, anytime you build a network, you might discover new opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of supporting.
Exactly. And I love that like in Acro, I can say that like metaphorically we support each other and like emotionally we support each other and literally physically we support each other. And I just love that.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you have a pretty big group of people. I'm sure some of them are much closer and some of them are, acquaintances.
Of course.
But how natural does that development of the connection in your Acro communities feel to you?
Incredibly natural. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like once you establish a physical touch connection with someone, then it's just a matter of letting the energy speak for itself. With some people, with all people in my Acro community, I am strictly friends only. And with some people, I have a very sort of like comfortable level of closeness and intimacy where, we will do some kind of Acro flow and, for example, record it. And then we sit and watch it and sort of study it, but we will sit and like hug each other or I'll sit in their lap because like I'm cold maybe. Like literally this happened last night at the park. We're doing Acro and it got chilly. So as we're reviewing our video, I'm sitting in my base's like lap and, it's just kind of protecting me from wind. So I feel a little warmer. So with some people, it does just feel very natural and intuitive and very safe. And it, obviously I don't share that sort of level of closeness with everyone. And it is like you're saying, it's kind of like I have a small circle of people that I have that comfort level with. And then it just kind of grows bigger and bigger. And the farther people are away from my center of circle, the less I do those things with them. But again, it's not a judgment. It's just, an energetic alignment or less of an energetic alignment. Yeah. And it happens naturally and intuitively.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned that it's not intended to go any particular place. It's, it's touch that is within a certain boundary.
Yeah. And like I said, the progression of, relationships in the Acro community happens, of course. We're all human and, people go there. For me personally, that's never been, that's not why I look to this community. And also just, haven't literally ever met someone that I wanted to partner with in any way beyond intimate friendship. So for me, that's not the purpose of going to Acro. So yeah, I can't speak for others, of course.
It's just neat to have the idea that you can have physical contact and sit in someone's lap and be really connected and not have a partner go, "Oh my God, you're cheating on me."
Yes, that exactly. Yes, that.
Yeah. Or to have anyone else standing around going, "Oh my God, she's cheating on him." Right.
Yep.
It's accepted.
Yes. Yes. And whoever strangers are walking by thinking I'm cheating on someone, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. There you go. Fantastic. Well, I know that you were mentioning a little bit about an Acro Yoga documentary or something like that. Do you want to tell me a little bit more?
There are incredibly, like I said, diverse and talented people in the Acro community. And a couple of my Acro friends decided to start a documentary. One of them has, a fascinating story that he was born with eye condition that basically rendered him legally blind. And he mainly, one of the ways he communicates is through touch. And so the documentary is sort of centers around his story, is my understanding. It is still in very early stages. But I find I'm completely supportive of this project. And I think it is so fascinating that they are doing this project and bringing awareness of what Acro can do to the world and explaining what it actually is. Because a lot of times, I'll say people I do Acro and they're like, "What's Acro?" So it'd be great to have a resource that, like a documentary, to point them to, like, hey, you know what? Watch that. I don't know if you know, there's a documentary about pole dance.
Really?
There is. It's called Strip Down, Rise Up.
Awesome.
Yes. So, and that's, I watched it a while ago. And that's partly why I'm so excited about this Acro documentary. It's just another way to show people that, in terms of like pole dance, for example, it's not just limited to the strippers, the strip clubs. There's so much more to that. And I'm super excited that I'm part of that world too. And it's going to be the same thing with Acro, to have people a resource to point people to, so they can watch for themselves what we actually do, what the community means to people, what level of, sort of communication is required, how you can cultivate your physical fitness and channel your creativity into all of this. Super excited about this. So the project is, I believe it's currently titled Touching the Sky. And they're in the early stages. There's apparently phase 3. I just went to the fundraiser for funding this project. There are 3 phases. They're in phase 1, and they need to raise funds to finish phase 1 before they can move on to production and all the rest of the post-production stuff that happens that I have no idea how all of that works. But there are some people who are in our community who are genius, and they do know how to do all this stuff. Right now, all I know is that the project is being worked on. They're going to film stories from all over the world, although it is based in Seattle. but they do have, acrobats and their stories from all over the world, and they need to raise funds to finish phase 1. So if anyone is interested in supporting the project, you can find it. You can look up Touching the Sky, the Acro documentary. You can follow it on Instagram at the Acro Doc Project. And you can learn all the information about that there and find, the link to support it. So I'm really hoping that, I'm going to rephrase that. I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to raise the funds to make this documentary come to fruition, because the world needs to see this.
It sounds like a beautiful project.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it.
Very cool. Well, I can't wait to see it too. I mean, and to watch him do acro.
Yes, exactly.
That's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to be full of stories and what acro means to people, what it has done for them, how it has changed or affected their lives, and get to see just all sorts of different people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want to get a hold of you in particular for questions, how would they reach out to you?
You can find me on Facebook. It's just Natasha Hawthorn, or on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Polarized Studio, and it's spelled POLERIZE Studio. And it's kind of a play on words because I had a pole studio in my house where we did some training, Rebecca.
I remember that.
Yes. So that was the name of my pole studio, Polarize. So I'm Polarized Studio on Instagram.
Awesome. I got to say, having New Year's Eve parties at your house with your poles in the living room, fabulous memories of all those fun times.
Yeah, that was hella fun.
Especially watching the guys climb up the poles and swing down. Oh my goodness.
Yes, those were some of my favorite parties. And did you know that you can combine pole and acro?
What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I do have some videos on my Instagram page, which is not super active, but I do have some videos on there of combining pole and acro.
Well, I'm going to go look them up now.
And doing it with 3 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
You know what? This is the thing. Like, one of the things I like about the name of this documentary project, Touching the Skies, I'm sure it has a lot of different meanings, but to me, it's like sky is the limit for what you can do with acro.
Yeah.
Sky is the limit for it. Yeah. There's so many ways to incorporate it, and you can combine it with so many other things, including pole.
Beautiful.
Go check it out on my Instagram page and you'll see.
Well, since we mentioned boundaries at the very beginning, is there any particular tip that you might want to leave people with around boundaries and how to hold their boundaries and practice that?
Just simply very clear and non-judgmental communication, especially if you're new to acro and you're coming to a class or a jam or, whatever, to practice acro with someone else. Number one, ask them what their level of experience is so that you can know what to expect from them, what kind of level of support in all the ways you can expect from them. And communicate that, you're new if you happen to be new, or, if you have any injuries or anything like that. And just keep it very simple. You don't need to offer a ton of explanation. You don't need to give like your entire life story, unless the situation calls for it and you want to share that. But just simply communicate, hi, I'm new. I'd like to practice. Where can we get started? That's going to feel safe for me. And if something doesn't feel safe, like literally just say, I'm not feeling comfortable with this. Can we try something else? Or can you help me work on this so that I can feel more comfortable with this? And that can happen at all levels of acro practice. You don't have to be new to communicate that. If there's, some kind of an advanced skill you're working on as an advanced practitioner, still just literally the same communication. I don't feel comfortable with this. How can we make this more comfortable for me? Or I just need more time to practice. Let's do something else.
And when all else fails, You can always remove yourself from the situation.
Yep, absolutely. Exiting the situation is a 100% acceptable strategy.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I'm really happy that you were able to come and be on the show, Natasha.
Thanks for inviting me, Rebecca.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the new house in Hawaii.
Oh, yes. You and I both.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
Hey there, Pleasure Seeker. Well, that's it for today's conversation. Here at Pleasure Central Radio, we love using conscious communication, science geekery, and copious amounts of true pleasure to improve our partnerships, our money, and our love lives. And we hope you do too. If you loved what you heard here, we'd love a review. You can do this easily on podcast players like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it's an easy way to help more people discover the show without you having to actually bring it up with them. To hear other episodes of the podcast and get notified immediately when a new episode is released, follow me on your favorite podcast player. Find out more and get in touch at pleasurecentralradio.com. Your thought to ponder today is,
instead of blaming and projecting what's not going well onto other people that you're working with, there has to be a sense of ownership and understanding that this is a collaborative creation. Nothing in a partnership can ever be all someone else's fault.